Hi, I'm Spring, and I'm here with my best buddy and Camino pal.
Cid. My name's Cid Hosker. Yes, we are Camino buddies and pals and all sorts of other things.
And we're here to talk with you about our Camino journey. We want to share with you what happened to us, how we got on the Camino. We want to also help you prep. We want to share the biggest reminder, which is this is your Camino. And whatever you do, however you walk it or train it or ride it or run it or bike it is up to you. And we want to share our journey. And that's what this is about. So Cid, tell me and all our friends how you decided how the Camino came into your life.
Okay. Thank you. And this is going to be a great adventure for us, getting our Camino experience out into the world. I first heard of the Camino when I was in my second year university in an art history class. My professor, Dr. Theodore Heinrich, was talking to us about medieval art and architecture, and he was in the process of doing some writing about the pilgrimage routes. And quietly, I said to myself, I am going to walk that someday. And so that someday came along, September 2023, many, many years later. But the thought never left my mind. It's been a dream come true. Yeah.
Yeah,
Spring, how did you find out about the Camino?
thanks, Sid. Well, back in the late 90s, I picked up a book by my one-time spiritual teacher, Shirley MacLaine. And this book is called The Camino. It's still available if you want to get it, or if anybody out there wants to get it. She talks about her journey on the Camino, which is quite different from what we experience nowadays. Um, it was a lot more difficult. There wasn't as much of an infrastructure. People didn't say Buen Camino, which seems like a really big difference. They said, as you know, they said Ultrea, right? We shared that a
Mhm.
lot when we were on our Camino, Ultrea. Um, and she had the press chasing her because she's a famous movie star. So we didn't have any of that. We didn't have the press. But going back to so after reading the book, I was married at the time, and I told my husband about the book, and I said, "Oh, this is definitely something we should consider doing," because he's a hiker. He walks every single day. And I was thinking to myself, like, I'll need him to be able to go on the trip because I don't know if I can make it. I need him to kind of motivate me. So fast forward 90, 20 some years. Um, we are on our way to divorce, and the kids had moved out, and I'm thinking about what my next steps in life are, as just a single woman. And one day it just downloaded into me, the next step is the Camino. It I got the information in full form. I'll walk the Frances Camino, and I'll walk from Saint Jean, even though I didn't even know it was called Saint Jean. I just knew I would start at the beginning where most people start. I'll end in Santiago. I didn't have a desire to walk on to the ocean, but I was open to it. And yeah, that's that's how it all happened. And that was just a month before I flew out of Portland, Oregon. That was just a month. It took me a month and some days to buy all the stuff and pack all the stuff. So talking about buying and packing and all that, I'm kind of reaching ahead. So Cid, what was your next step when you decided that you were going to actually make it in September of 23?
Well, I retired in 2019 from my teaching job. And I had initially planned to travel in October 2020. Unfortunately, my plans were foiled. COVID came along in March 2020, and I had to put everything on hold, just like the rest of the world. And then I bided my time until I felt thoroughly comfortable in leaving my house and
Yeah.
my hometown and going off into the world. Um, and so, in the meantime, though, over all those years, I think I had planned all of these fantasy budgets and packing lists and places to stay, using books, basically. Was not an online planning experience until I got down to the nitty gritty, probably the summer before I was going to be departing.
In 2023? Oh,
Excuse me.
bless you. That's the summer of 2023, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
2023, sorry. Oh my
Oh,
goodness,
bless you.
excuse me. Yeah,
Um, and
yeah, so,
then
yeah.
how did you decide, like, how did you decide where to fly? Did you fly
Oh.
to Toronto, and then how did that all go?
Mhm. I flew out of Toronto to Paris, Paris to Biarritz, and then from Biarritz, I took a shuttle that I shared with three other people to Saint Jean Pied de Port. So I basically I took a look. I took a look at all the options in terms of flying. What was the most direct? What was the most economical? And I landed on Paris. So I initially thought maybe I might take the train, although I had done that before, and the countryside is beautiful. But I also thought I might be tired after flying all night. And so I decided to do the direct thing and do a rest once I got to Saint Jean. Yeah.
Yeah, that's such a good idea for that rest. But I got a little ahead of ourselves, in that I want to hear about your prepping. I know you did a lot of list making, but then how did you buy things on Amazon? Did you go out and shop so you could physically touch things? How did that all go?
Um, we have a really neat store in Peterborough, where I got some of my clothing. I went, I spent the afternoon in Mountain Equipment Co-op trying on every hiking boot they had and fell in love with the Vast Breeze boot, and trained in that boot with blister free, with darn tough stocks. So I was a lot of hands-on. But when it came to purchasing some of the other things, I investigated an online store. It's not really a store. Um, it's called The Last Hunt. So basically, all kinds of attire, equipment, gadgets, footwear, everything. They're usually a couple of seasons old or a season old, and they are quite reduced prices. The trouble with that is, knowing your size. But I managed to buy like my rain jacket, which is a Marmot, and my rain pants
Yeah.
and book liner, like a number of things like that. I did use The Last Hunt so that I bought items on sale. The clothing that I wore chiefly, though, I did purchase at our local outdoor shop.
So the last hunt, how can people find that if they want to use that
Right.
option?
If they just Google The Last Hunt,
Okay.
then all kinds of things pop up. I
Oh,
mean, everything under the sun. So there's a drop down menu, and you can click on whatever it is that you'd like to shop for. So it can be women's and men's clothing, it can be camping gear, everything.
okay.
Mhm. It's pretty simple, and I would say the delivery, it was seamless. Everything was seamless about using that site.
You talk about your boots, and the first thing I bought was shoes. I bought Hoka's, and I went to a local running store here, and the young woman was so kind and spent so much time with me. And the coincidental thing, I was still very trepidatious about the decision I had made to, basically walk across Spain. And at the end of the transaction for the shoes, I asked her, "What's your name?" She didn't have a name tag. And during the time we were talking, I never asked her, which is kind of not like me, but um, then she said, "Oh, my name is Paige," and Paige is the name of my sister who passed. So I felt like, okay, it's a sign, it's synergy. Yes, these shoes are great, and I've committed to this, and I am going on the Camino. Just in case someone out there is like questioning, I just had to keep in this process, and I think Cid feels the same way. You just keep putting one step in front of the other, even though it's so scary because you're basically heading across the big pond. I mean, we're saying that because we're in North America, but you're heading across the big pond, to take this very long walk.
Mhm.
Um, After shoes, I was so fortunate because my daughter's boyfriend is a real mountaineering guy, and he met me at a outdoor vendor at a store in Portland, and just helped me choose backpack and clothing and liner, sleeping bag liner, and socks, and all those kind of things that, I was thinking I'm going to take cotton everything. And he's like, "No, you can take cotton nothing." So I
Yeah.
had to rebuy all the clothes, just rethink, the way I was going to dress. Um, yeah, so that was that piece. Uh, Shoes, once I got my backpack, then I'm like, everything else is easy. But then the next thing was buying the ticket. Once I bought the ticket, the plane ticket, that was it.
Mhm.
I knew that it was a done deal. And just really quick, the way I did it is I flew from Portland uh, on Delta to JFK, and I paid for that with points. And then from JFK, I flew to Charles de Gaulle on Air France, and I actually paid for that flight. In France, I took 3 days to get over jet lag and see the sights. I had been there several times, but I kind of just wanted to spend time in the city. So that was fun. That was fun. Did you spend any time in Biarritz?
No, no, I had a 4 hour layover in Paris. And then caught my flight, in Biarritz, and when or to Biarritz, and then the shuttle was meeting me right after I landed. So it was, by that time, it was getting to be a little later in the afternoon. And I was ready to be where I wanted to be. So I didn't take any extra time in transit to Saint Jean. I stayed 2 days in Saint John when I arrived.
One thing I think people would want to know is, changing over money. I changed money once I got to Charles de Gaulle. I went uh, before I took an Uber into Paris. I went to a foreign money exchange in the airport, and I exchanged my
Mhm.
money. I
Yep.
don't know if it's a better deal than doing it stateside before I left, but that's when I did it. And I think I changed over $300 at that time, I believe. And
Mhm.
how did I know you had a whole thing with a credit card and banking with a Canadian bank, which
Yep.
seemed actually quite thoughtful and like a really good decision on your part.
Well, I changed currency before I left, and I carried money with me. Um, I so I took a substantial amount of money with me and carried it in a money belt. I had a specific credit card that I got to use separately for my trip. And then when I got to the airport, a friend had told me about a card that you can get at the airport. And it's called the currency converter. It was through Air Canada. And you can transfer funds from your bank account to the card. Well, you do pay the what is it?
Transfer
Um,
fee, the exchange rate,
exchange rate. But
exchange.
then there are no other charges when you use that card, which is different from unless you have a specific card that doesn't charge you fees. On one note, I did take more than one card, and luckily that was the case because the new card that I did get specifically for the trip, the PIN number was acting up, and I ended up
Right,
not using it after a certain point.
yeah.
So I would have been in a little bit of a pickle had I decided just to take that one card with me.
So I
So
did carry a money belt like Sid did, but what I did have was, or what I did take was I took two credit cards, one for emergency, one to use every day, which worked perfectly. I let my bank know ahead of time what what country I was going, what countries I was going to be in, which everybody needs to do that. Sometimes you can do it just on their app, and sometimes you actually need to call your bank and let them know. I took a American Express, which is not widely used in Spain on the Camino, but it's great on booking.com, which Sid and I will talk more about. So those were the three cards I had with me, which of course my driver's license and my insurance card, my medical insurance card. I did not buy medical insurance. Did you, Sid, buy medical insurance for the trip?
I didn't have to buy medical insurance with my the retirement insurance coverage that I have on my health plan. It's automatically included.
Oh, perfect.
So I did have health insurance for sure. But it wasn't an extra expense for me. And luckily, because I did need to make a hospital visit while we were there, so insurance is really important. You just never know what's going to come up. Even a small thing can be quite costly. If
Yeah.
if you find yourself needing some medical support for sure.
And we will talk about that,
Yeah.
her visit. Did you actually go to well, we'll talk about that. That's a whole,
We
we
could
want to
talk
talk
about
about
that
that
another day.
when it happened. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're fine now, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So money, insurance, we're both in France by now. And I do want to talk about a little bit more about my stay in Paris. I stayed at the Hotel Pax Opera. It's nothing great. It's between the 9th and 10th arrondissements. It was about 200 a night, and I booked it with Expedia. It was fine. There were no bed bugs. Um, Comparing to, let's say, hotels here in the States, I think 200 was expensive, but it's Paris. Um, that was my stay there in Paris. And also Expedia is another way you can book rooms. I think we both agree that booking.com was our go-to and was the best for us, and made seamless because of the way the Camino apps work. Also, I depending on how you're going to get to Saint Jean or wherever you start your Camino, we both recommend an app called Train, or I think it's the whole name is called Trainline, right?
Train line.
Yeah, and so download the European version of that. There's also an American version, and that is where it's super simple to, I mean, it took me a few minutes. It's not, my first go-to. I mean, just even how an app worked, it took me a minute to figure it out. But once I did, it was so easy to book a train, so easy. And I took a train from Montparnasse station to not Biarritz, but the other, help me with the name, Sid, of that town.
Oh, Bayonne.
Bayonne.
Bayonne. Yeah.
Bayonne. I remember it. Uh, I remember it because of, oh, Oh my God, Sid?
What's up?
What the hell? What the heck? Do you still see me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I don't see you. Um, huh. Okay, there. Sorry about that.
That's
Um, uh, so I took the train to Bayonne. At Bayonne, I changed trains, and thank God that's when I started seeing the other pilgrims. Because on the train I was at from Paris to Bayonne, I didn't see any other pilgrims. Okay. Then finally, when I get off that train, I get on the other. There's just backpacks and people with some people with their walking sticks, some people with their day pack. It was just, thank God. I'm like, okay, now, and of course, I wanted to meet everybody. So I was a little, I don't know, just a weirdo, just trying to introduce myself, but in a kind of calm and cool, collected way.
I was the
I'm like,
exact
oh my God,
opposite.
these are my people, I'm like, I
Yeah,
can't wait to build my Camino family.
that's so funny.
Yeah.
Um,
And then you had a story because you landed at the airport, and then what happened from there?
oh, I had made a reservation with a shuttle, a nice big SUV, Express Burico, it's called. Um, and how that arrangement is made, you send an email to the company
Say the
and
company name again, Express.
Express Burico, yeah.
Okay.
Um, it is it was great. They were on time. They loaded up my bags for me, which was really, really nice. Um, and so anyway, yeah, email and you send them your flight number and the time of arrival, and they are there when your flight arrives. Probably about a 15-minute wait. I um yeah, so that was seamless. And then they took all of us to a central location and dropped us off. And then it was up to us to find our way to where we were staying that night, which for me was a little unexpected walking tour of Saint Jean when I really wasn't prepared to be doing that. However, I did happen along the tourist office while I was trying to find my way, and I got straightened out quite quickly. And that was good news for me because I was super tired after having flown all night, waited for my
Yeah.
flights.
Yeah.
So a long time without, a good sleep.
Yes. And then it gets kind of hard to do decision making.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I came into Saint Jean in a little bit different space because I had slept and I just followed people like on the way, on the movie The Way, which we didn't talk about yet, but of course we've both seen, and I hope you've seen it too. It's available on Netflix, I believe. Right now they've just re-released it with Martin Sheen and Emilio Estevez. It's such a wonderful movie. And I have to admit, last week I watched it twice because I
Okay.
missed the Camino so much. So when I arrived, I just followed the rest of the people into the town. It's not even 10 minutes. And then it took me a while because I couldn't get my bearings on my phone. It took me a while to find my hotel, which is actually just like a pension. I actually got the name. It's called Plan B. I booked it through booking.com. It's on Rue des Citadel, which is the main, not the bigger street, but like the main walkway street. Not many cars are on this. It's where a lot of the albergues or pensions are in Saint Jean, and also the Pilgrim's office and the small outdoor store where many of us got our last minute things, which is mostly poles, socks, pole tips, things like that. A wonderful, wonderful store where the people were so patient and lovely. That's where I got my poles. And then that okay, so plan B, I had a room to myself, and the bathroom was also just my bathroom, but it wasn't connected to the room. And there was another pilgrim in there. Only one other woman was staying there the night I was there, and she was from Brazil. Um, So then it's like 8:30 by the time I'm out, ready to go eat dinner. And everything was kind of closing down, which is weird because I thought things would be open late because it's like Europe, everybody eats later. But things were starting to close down, and I ended up eating at a restaurant called Les Pyrenees. And it's part of the Arambide, which is, I think, the family name. They have a hotel and a restaurant. The food, it is a Michelin star restaurant. I looked it up. You can find in the Michelin guide, and it's very nouvelle cuisine. The food was great. I mean, as a pilgrim starting out on this very humble journey, it,
We're living it up in
I
style.
was, I was living it up. Yeah.
That's great.
Uh, and it was wonderful. And then I just reaffirmed my intention to be more humble in my journey across Spain. Yeah.
So for me, my nights in Saint Jean, I stayed 2 nights. Um, out of necessity really, because we will talk about this later as well. I had a specific place I wanted to stay as I was crossing over the Pyrenees. And it was fully booked on the night that I initially planned on staying there. So I thought, well, here we are already. I haven't left Canada. And I am going to my plan B okay, this isn't what I wanted, but this will do. And it actually ended up being the better plan. So I stayed 2 nights in Saint Jean at a place called um, uh, Albergue Billeri, and it's almost right across the street from the Pilgrim's office. Um, I had my dinner there, a communal dinner with everyone else who was staying there. There were probably maybe around 12 people each night. Bunch of interesting people from all over the world. And we were introduced to one another. We told our stories as to why we were wanting to walk the Camino. The second night, it was fantastic. A group of 10 students and 2 of their teachers arrived, plus a couple of other people, 6 people from Alaska who were embarking upon an adventure. So it was pretty exciting. The meal was beautiful. It was vegetarian, a beautiful lentil soup, and main course and lovely desserts and endless supply of wine, which I was very cautious with because I wanted to have a clear head when I was walking first thing in the morning. Our time is almost up.
Yes.
So how would you like to wrap this part up? Well,
Um,
we're ready to start our walk tomorrow.
yes. Stay tuned. We'll be back with you so you can hear how we both ventured out on our first day, which actually was the same day. We just
Yes,
didn't know each other yet. But
that's
we
right.
both left on September 24th,
Yeah,
2023, from Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port. And uh, next time we will talk to you about our first steps on the Camino. Um, I'm just so excited to be able to share it with you.
absolutely. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us.